So I want to talk about the most frustrating thing with fishing a chatterbait, and that is losing them. Every single one of us has been thrown a chatterbait. You feel it go to deflect off a piece of cover, whether it's a root ball in my case this past week, or it's a log, or a reed clump, anything like that, and you feel it go and get locked right in place. Well, today what I want to talk about is how to avoid that and how to start losing less chatterbaits, because your best opportunity at getting fish a lot of times with a chatterbait is getting it to deflect off of that cover. So that's what I want to talk about today. So if you're a guy that loves throwing a chatterbait, this is a video you're not going to want to miss. So like I talked about, losing chatterbaits is probably one of the most frustrating things, especially because a jackhammer is $15.99 and Evo is still $10.99, but chatterbaits can get expensive. But the problem is they catch big fish and they're really fun to throw, and it's just so much fun to catch fish on it. And so how do you stop losing them in that cover? Well, there's two different ways, and I throw two different setups with both ways, and I've kind of learned the art as to how to keep it as weedless as physically possible. And so the first setup that I throw is a softer rod. We all know Brett Height and some of these other guys that are really, really great crankbait or chatterbait fishermen love to throw these really parabolic bend rods. And what I mean by parabolic is those really soft rods that really bow up. And that's not just because the fish get the bait better, it's because it helps the chatterbait deflect off cover better. When you're throwing a softer rod, when your chatterbait is hunting, instead of it just rolling over, it kind of like starts to catch, your rod starts to load, and then it just pops it over. And so you actually lose a lot less chatterbaits by fishing a rod that is more parabolic. And what I'll actually do too is I will actually go to a slower gear ratio reel if I need to get the bait down deeper, or because that's also going to help me feel what I'm getting into, and it's going to help me get that bait through the cover. I can almost feel it working, kind of like how you feel a crankbait digging along the bottom. I can do the same thing with a chatterbait. I can feel it as it's gonna deflect off of cover. And so as I'm reeling it, what I'll do is I feel it start to pick up and I feel that rod start to load, is you flare that reel handle just once. And so let's say I'm fishing it and I feel it about to come over a piece of cover. If I'm reeling it, I feel that rod start to load up a little bit. As soon as I feel it start to hit the rod, I'm gonna flare my reel handle a little bit. And what that bait's gonna do is instead of it rolling, it's gonna go hop right up over, and that's all of a sudden you're gonna feel dunk, and that's when that fish is gonna absolutely choke it. And so that's how I really like to keep a chatterbait from getting caught up. I also will do one other thing with the rod that I throw, because this is just one setup. I like one other rod setup, and then I'll do some things to the baits themselves too to also keep them from getting hung up. But the other combo that I really like to use, and so that rod is a 7.4 moderate fast medium heavy by Arc. It's an Arc Essence. I will have all of them linked down below, as well as the baits and everything like I always do. But the other combo that I go to is my absolute favorite chatterbait combo, and that is the 7.4 Invoker. This is the new Invoker Tour series. It's a medium heavy regular, but it's not as parabolic. It still has a little bit of it, but it's a little bit firmer of a rod. But what I'll do is I will actually go to, this is like the Cross Eyes chatterbait. I can't remember the exact name, but I will link it down below. And as you can see, it has these two little weed guards on there, and they're not super stiff. You see, if I even push on those, it's gonna, boom, you're hooked. But what that does is that just keeps it from getting the hook point started on the cover. And so this is what I go to when things get really, really thick. If I'm fishing around logs on the bottom, or I'm fishing around anything that I know for a fact I'm going to get stuck on, that's what I'm gonna go to. And that little baby is so deadly when I'm fishing around other people, especially if you get a cold front or something like that, because what that allows me to do is I can basically worm that crankbait through the cover. And you hear the guys use that term worm very loosely. You know, worming is like when you cast it out and you're dragging it through and you're pulling it through. Well, now I can do that with this, but as I'm reeling it, I can just slowly tick it and feel it crawling and bumping over everything. And that's how you're really gonna get some great reaction bites. The only thing that I've done to this bait is this has an O'Shaughnessy style hook on it where that bend is kind of down. I took it and I bent it up just a hair. So now you can see as soon as that starts to go down, like barely any pressure, you're gonna get that hook point started. And it actually hooks the fish really, really good once you do that. But that's why I throw it on this little bit stiffer rod, because then I can really push that weed guard down with that. But that is one way that I really, really keep that loose. Because if you look at the trailer, this is my favorite trailer, is the Z-Man Razor Shad. It's a tall, thin trailer, and so it has a tendency to want to kick on its side. And that's why people most oftentimes get baits stuck when they're fishing in a round cover, because they use trailers that are tall and thin. And so it makes it really easy for that bait to fall on its side and get stuck on the log. Well, if you wanted to go to something a little bit different that's gonna help keep it from getting stuck, you can go to a fatter style trailer. I actually think I have one on a swim jig over here somewhere. So, if you wanna also keep it from getting hung up, if you're fishing really shallow and those fish are really aggressive, what you can do, and I know this is on a swim jig, but it makes the same point, is go to a fatter, flatter style trailer. So this is a Z-Man Goat, and guys, this isn't a plug. I love Z-Man plastics when it comes to trailers because of this. You still get the great action, but now I will go through one trailer the entire day, as opposed to any other bait. If a fish slaps at these, it's ripping them right off. Well, not this time. But if you go to that fatter style trailer, it almost doesn't allow it to roll over, right? It kind of keeps it flatter and it keeps it from wanting to kick over on its side. And so sometimes when you're fishing up shallow, like I said, you get a push of those fish, you're fishing really, really shallow, like 3 feet and less, you can easily get away with throwing this bait because now it's gonna ride over top of stuff and wanna move over top of stuff instead of roll over. And so I like the Z-Man Goat as we have here. You can go with the Z-Man Firecraw too. It has those big flapping style trailers, a little bit wider body. And then the other one that I throw that you guys saw on here was the Z-Man Razor Shads. Those are really the only 2 trailers that I really run. Given the opportunity, I really like to go to this. I will go to a boot style trailer, that Z-Man Diesel Minnow, but that really doesn't help or hurt you because it's a taller style trailer, so it almost tends to get stuck too, just like the Razor Shad. But like I said, that Z-Man Goat or those flatter style trailers will actually help keep it from getting hung up a little bit more. Now when I'm fishing this weed guarded chatterbait, I do go back to a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel to be able to catch up to those fish a little bit. Because a lot of times when you deflect it off that cover, it almost feels like somebody walks up and cuts your line, right? When they eat it, it's like, and there's just slack. So I want that little bit faster gear ratio to be able to catch up to those fish and get a really solid hook set. Because with that O'Shaughnessy style bend, it's a great hook, but now you don't have the ease of just, as soon as they eat it, the hook's already there. You can see even as soon as I touch that, like, I'm getting stuck. But so I want something that's gonna drive that home a little bit, and it's a little bit thicker hook on there too. So that's also why I wanna do that. But a chatterbait is so amazing around cover, and so many people shy away from it so much just because of the fact that it gets hung up in cover. But there's ways around it like we talked about today. So if you guys wanna learn a little bit more about fishing a chatterbait, I'll have a video linked up here where it's everything you need to know about fishing a chatterbait. But thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.